All right, looks like we're getting ready. Good morning, everybody. I guess the first thing I want to say is happy week 9, but I want to add on that. You know what? It's really an honor to be a part of everybody's football ritual for each week. I know football means so much to so many of you, and the fact that you may be a part of that weekly routine means a lot. So thank you very much. Glad you guys are here and gals are here, and let's get rolling some questions here. Eric wants to know. Oh well, we won't throw Alan under the bus. Appreciate it, Alan. You know everybody's different in fantasy football, right? We all have a different skill set. I know my rare quality is that I understand football really well, whereas a lot of people know Happy Sunday, see Angels. Yeah, a lot of people just know numbers, and that's great. Numbers are a great way to process fantasy, and mine is kind of more of a NFL approach. But anyway, yeah, we love everybody that tries to do their best for the fantasy world, right? All right, so Eric, you need a running back dart throw, and can you put P. Ryan in there? P. Ryan's probably going to get you 3 to 5 touches. That's usually about what he sees. Off of waivers, I'm sure Kenyon Drake is gone. I'm looking down the teams here and see Jerick McKinnon's probably gone. I would trust McKinnon a little bit more. He's probably gone, depending on your league, right? Rashad White, I'm sure, is gone. If somebody dumped Cam Akers, I'd give him a shot. And let's just see if there's any other teams. I would go JaMycal Hasty if he's on your waiver wire. I would go Hasty over P. Ryan if he's available. I think we're more likely to see like 2 more touches extra out of him, and the matchup's much easier. And those are the ones that come to mind. Oh, Ty Johnson might be, well, I wouldn't write because it's possible James Robinson's inactive. If he is, Ty Johnson would get some significant touches, but you got to look to see if he's inactive. Great question. All right, Uncle Santini, Evan Ingram or London. So Drake London is really tough to trust because it's just not really going on for him consistently in the offense. He had a big game earlier in the season. I think Evan Ingram's just a great floor play for you. He gets roughly 6-ish targets each week, and the matchup with the Raiders is not scary at all. So I think Ingram probably has a higher floor than London, and London right now doesn't seem to have much of a ceiling. And I know the matchup right now for Atlanta against the Falcons may not look so bad, but I still think for that they're going to have such a good time running the ball. I don't know how much they're going to throw here. So I would probably go. Let me see. I have a couple of Insta questions here. King D Love, Everett or Ingram? Now, I like Everett in this one because Everett may be their number one option in the passing game this week. No Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen. And it's important. Donald Parham is on the injured reserve. Parham is starting to cut into Everett's work a little bit. And with him gone, so Everett's going to be a factor in the middle of the field. And Atlanta really doesn't have the defense to hang with him. So I think Everett's a great play this week. And then I have another Insta question here. I've got Deion Jackson or Drake. So, the Saints are a good or top 10 run defense. They're not the top 2 unit they had been in the past. And Deion Jackson, I don't like his matchup, but I think Deion Jackson may get more work than Drake. And that's where I may look in that game. So we got to understand that as well. So I think because of volume, I may go with Deion Jackson. I got to get back to a couple of YouTube and I can't think of Twitter questions. Uncle Santini, DJ Moore or Lazard. I don't know if Lazard's going to play. And so that's problematic. So right now, knowing he's not 100%, DJ Moore, I think he gets by with another week because Chidobe Awuzie is on the injured reserve. Mike Hilton, their slot corners out. And that leaves them with Eli Apple, who's been bad. So I think DJ Moore gets it done another week. Lazard's not 100%, so I'm going to go that route. Dev, combo better, Pittman, Fournette, or Deion Jackson, Curtis Samuel? Honestly, I think Deion Jackson's in for a really, really rough go of it today. They're playing New England, and New England doesn't get to respect Sam Ehlinger as a quarterback. They're going to load the front up, my guesses, and Deion Jackson's really going to struggle. We had a bad offensive line. So Pittman should see his targets. He saw 9 last week. Fournette, he hasn't been great, but he's at least getting the ball, and I think as a receiver, he'll help you there. And then Bialy, tight end, Knox, Ingram, or Tunyon. Ingram, to me, has the highest floor, and he has a fairly equivalent ceiling to all. So to me, the answer will be Ingram there. I'm not scared of the matchup. I got a couple Insta questions. They're really piling up here, so it's good. It's good. So let me see what I got here. So I've got Randy, you got Palmer or Dubs. So I think Palmer has a higher floor because I think he has to get 6 to 8 targets. Dubs played well last week, making a touchdown grab. I think he may be getting more confidence from Rodgers, and I think the matchup is phenomenal. So I think Dubs is your boom bust play. And Taysom Hill are likely, I'm going to say Taysom Hill here. Likely, they're facing the Saints are number 1 against tight ends. And you know what? last week it was very clear the game plan was attack Tampa with the tight end, whether that was Andrews or Likely. I think Likely's in for a real rugged matchup, so I would go Taysom Hill there. All right, let's go back to Insta, and I'm going to go back to YouTube and Twitter. BL, you have Swift, Williams, and Connor. Who do you bench? Oh man, well they're going to test out Connor pregame. And they sat him down the last couple of weeks when he practiced. So I'm going to say based on that, you can't take a 0. And that's why I'm going to say that. And then you have another one. You need Henderson, Benjamin, Moss, or Hill. Benjamin is going to get some looks. Henderson, McVay doesn't want to play him. And now with Akers potentially back, and, Henderson was running the third most touches last week. So in Moss, I don't know how much he plays and he snaps. Justice Hill, they're misusing him. He should get more touches. It is a tougher matchup. I'm going to say Benjamin probably is your best bet to score something. And then Michael Carter or Eno Benjamin. So because Michael Carter plays an early game, I'm going to say Michael Carter. He has to get a lot of dump offs in this game. Benjamin is going to lose a ton of value if James Conner's back. And because he's a game time decision that we don't know, we can't take that chance with a later game. And all right, so a couple more Insta questions here. You've got Jeff Wilson or Gus Edwards the rest of the schedule. I don't know how serious the Gus Edwards injury is to the hamstring, because that could be what the ultimate problem is. And I don't know if Dobbins is going to come back. I think Jeff Wilson's going to get at least half the work. They can't keep running most or 15, 18 touches a week. They just really can't do that. So honestly, but if Edwards is on the field, he's in a much better spot because that's a run first team. So I'm going to say, assuming Edwards is back in 2 weeks, Edwards has the edge, but I don't know how serious the hamstring is, which just makes it difficult to answer. And then one more fantasy fiends, so Higbee or Likely. I'm going to say Higbee here. I don't necessarily think it's a great matchup, but there's a safety out for the Buccaneers, and that's a big deal. Antoine Winfield's out, and that really opens things up a little bit, whereas Likely's facing the number 1 tight end defense. They don't even give up, it's barely 30 yards a game, and they haven't given up a touchdown, and I wouldn't want to trust Likely in that situation because I think he's overmatched. All right, let's see. Quarterback starts 1 of 3, Stafford, Fields, or Dalton. You know what? I got to say Justin Fields. He's over 20 fantasy points the last couple games. He ran for 80 and 60 and 88, 80 and 60 in the last 3. Miami is not a bad matchup for him. He can run. The secondary is not good. The Bears, I think, are going to have to score a lot of points to compete. And I think Fields has right now done enough with the changes in the offense to trust that he's safe. And then the next one, Pitts or Taysom Hill. Yeah, the problem is we had that week from Pitts last week after nothing, 3-9, 319 and a touchdown, pops off with 80 and a touchdown. Now, how do you sit him, right? And that's a difficult thing. He ran routes last week, which is the first time he ran more than 18 routes in 4 weeks. So, but is he going to do that again? Is it going to be a Drake London game if they pass? So it's very tough with Pitts, but Taysom Hill is risky too, because you have no idea what his role is going to be. My guess is if a team was going to be prepared for him, it'd be the Ravens. So that would likely make me say Pitts, because I think the Ravens would prepare for something like that. Jay, good morning. You heard my thoughts. Thank you for listening to Sirius. Appreciate that. Who'd up? Jackson, Pitts, Samuel, Duvernay. Oh yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, appreciate that. I always forget that. If you guys could, if you're on YouTube, if you smash the like button, I would appreciate it greatly. Subscribe would be great too. Thank you, Jay. So, honestly, we just talked about Pitts a second ago, and we don't know what his role is going to be week to week. He ran routes, like I said last week, and that was a positive. He hadn't for 4 prior games, so we have a bank of knowledge where it's a little bit problematic. Duvernay is a little tough to trust. He's really game to game, but he is their top receiver right now. And with Andrews out, I think Duvernay, because Marshawn Lattimore is out, and Paulson Adebo has been a good corner, but he's been banged up. And I think their third corner is out as well. So I almost would be, Deshaun Jackson, I have no idea what to expect from him yet. I think Samuel has the highest floor of this group because he's going to get his 5 catches, right? And Minnesota is not a team that's really going to be problematic for him. So I think Samuel has the best floor of the group. His floor is higher than Duvernay's, but I'm trying to think if Duvernay or Pitts have a higher ceiling. And again, it depends if Pitts runs routes. I'm going to say Samuel for floor. If you need a boom bust play and you need 20 points, I think Pitts would be your boom bust play. I would recommend Samuel as the floor play. All right, and let's see if I have any more Insta questions here. Let's see what we got here. Fishtail, bench Foreman, Patterson, or Connor. I'm going to say Connor because he's got to go through pregame workouts before they decide to start him, and they benched him the last 2 games. So I don't know how healthy he is. Patterson does seem to be ready to come back, and he's been very good, and their run blocking has been amazing. And Cincinnati's down DJ Reader, their best run defender. And Foreman, I think Foreman's in a great spot here. I'm playing him in DFS. I like his over prop on the rushing. He's a really good running back. And people, last year he had 300 plus yard games in a 5-game stretch for Tennessee. He's had 2 in a row here. I think he's the real deal. So I'm going to bench Connor because of health and the later start too. That later starts and works. We don't know. We don't want that 0. Brian, thanks, man. Thank you for that nice comment. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Thank you, Brian. Vinny, Deion Jackson or Kenneth Walker? Okay, that's a good question. Kenneth Walker, I know he's like boomer bust as a runner, but he gets those big runs, and that's what he counts on. But that's what he is, right? He's kind of one of these big play guys, and that's good. I don't like Deion Jackson's matchup. I know he had the 10 catches in his last time he started. I get that. But as a runner, not great. And with Sam Ehlinger in, here's the thing. Those 10 targets were for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, loves dumping it off because he doesn't want to get hit. Well, Ehlinger is a mobile quarterback. I don't think that those screens are in the equation to that level for him. And Jackson is facing a team that's going to load the front because they're not worried about Ehlinger beating them. So I think it's a Kenneth Walker, 80 to 20% on that one. And then I've got King Love. You've got Ingram or Gabe Davis. So to me, I think Gabe Davis has a similar floor to Ingram. He gets about 6 targets a game. That's what Ingram gets. And then here, and I think that Jacksonville game can be a shootout, but Davis has that massive upside where he just needs a big play. And I know he's facing maybe Sauce Gardner, maybe DJ Reed. It's a tough cornerback matchup, but Josh Allen's throwing the ball. And that's where it kind of plays in. Ultimately, I think, because Ingram, I don't think Ingram gives me enough upside. I'm going to say Davis for that reason. Kevon, Dubs or Garrett Wilson? Well, the Garrett Wilson is going to face a lot of zone defense. It's probably good for him, actually, against Buffalo. But the problem is Buffalo doesn't blitz, and they get pressure with 4. And Zach Wilson, I think Zach Wilson is going to be under siege in this game. Now, your hope for Wilson is, then they haven't, but if they benched him, but Joe Flacco wasn't even active last week, so I don't know that I trust Mike White to get it done. So I'm going to say Dubs. Dubs played well last week. I think it's another step toward getting trust in it from Aaron Rodgers, and I think that Detroit coverage is the worst in the league. So I'm going to go with Dubs here. I love Garrett Wilson's talent, but against Buffalo, I think that's going to be a lot of pressure for the young quarterback, and he's not good under pressure. Another instant question. Got 2 of them here. DJ Moore or Palmer. All right, so Palmer will get targets. DJ Moore, he's had 2 good matchups in a row. Tampa was down 2 corners last week. AJ Terrell got hurt, so Atlanta was down 2 corners. Same thing this week. Facing Cincy, Owuzie's on the injured reserve. He blew out his knee last week, poor guy. And then Mike Hilton's out. So I'm going to go with DJ Moore because another favorable matchup for him. And then CA Angels, you've got how many snaps from Hines today? Well, that's a good question. So I do think that it's going to take a little time for him to acclimate into the offense. I think especially when you're a receiving type back, you have to learn specific routes that you need to run. It's not just like a dump off screen game that they run in Buffalo. So I think Hines is a couple weeks away from significance, maybe next week, but he's close at, but I don't think yet. I think today we see 20 snaps tops. And I think Singletary is going to maintain value this week, but you're very right in your question because Singletary's value is going to drop significantly because Buffalo was looking for a receiving back in March when they went after J.D. McKissick, and that contract fell through. And then they drafted James Cook, and it looks like maybe he's a developmental. He plays well on occasion, but to bring in Hines tells me he's not quite there yet. So it's a great call. But I think this week, I think you're okay with Singletary because, again, on a short week, game plan was installed. I think we got at least a week. Great question. Ryan, KC, Minnesota. You know what? I'm going to say right there, I'm going to go KC because either Tannehill, whose ankle is nowhere close to 100%, is going to start, or it's going to be Malik Willis. And I would think Jeffrey Simmons for Tennessee didn't practice with an ankle all week. So my guess is he may not play. And if he plays, he's severely limited. That's going to allow Kansas City a lot of latitude on offense. And I think that they're going to get a lead. And I think that Tennessee is not going to be able to run Derrick Henry for 4 quarters. And if Willis or a hobbled handle's in there, I think that's your chance for an interception, sacks, pick six, fumble sixes, all that. Because I'm going to say that's your play. Henry, Evan Ingram are likely. I had a similar question earlier. I'm going to say Ingram. Ingram has a high floor. Likely is facing the toughest tight end defense in the league. They don't give up 30 yards a game. I think it is. It's less than 30 and no touchdowns. And last week, likely stepped into a game plan that was going to attack Tampa with the tight end. You saw from Andrews from play one, they were going to attack with the tight end. Well, this week, you don't attack New Orleans with the tight end. And I think New Orleans they've shut down everybody. Fant is the only guy ahead over like 23 yards against them. So I'm going to go with Ingram. Ingram plays well every week and his matchup's good. All right, let's see if we got another Insta question here. All right, Christopher, you've got Jamal Williams, Flex Swift, Brian Robinson, or Mecole Hardman. Brian Robinson is a bad matchup. The Vikings are lights out against the run, and Robinson hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks. Hardman, he's real game plan specific, right? And I don't know if Tennessee needs to feature him this week. And Swift is going to play about 30 snaps. I think I would trust Swift with 30 snaps because, again, even last week, he did cash a touchdown on that. And I know the last memory of Mecole Hardman is him scoring 3 touchdowns, but obviously that's not going to happen much. So I'm going to say we're going to go with Swift there because 30 snaps from him, I think, is a better bankable outcome than for Hardman. And I don't, again, we had that boom game from Hardman. We don't see many of those. So I'm going to say Swift. And we got Lisa next. You've got morning to you too. You have a few Rodgers or Tua. So I love Tua this week. The key for Tua is when you don't get a big pass rush and then you have issues in the cornerback secondary. So the Bears don't get any pressure. And then Robert Quinn was gone 2 weeks ago. Roquan Smith was gone last week. And then the Bears have a rookie safety, a rookie corner. That is all Tyreek and Jalen Waddle need. Any miscommunication, and it's like gone to the house. So I think it's a beautiful matchup for Tua here. And Aaron Rodgers, the matchup is like, but he hasn't been great. He hasn't been throwing more than 2 touchdowns, more than 240 yards in most games. So I think Tua's floor should be at least where Rodgers is, but Tua has an exponentially higher ceiling this week. All right. Kelly, you've got David Montgomery or Eno Benjamin or Jamal Williams. So we already know that DeAndre Swift is going to play on a reduced snap count, which gets about 30, which means we should see Jamal Williams on 40-ish snaps. And Green Bay is not a good run defense. And we saw it last week. Maybe you could just gash that group. So I do like Jamal Williams there. David Montgomery, Miami is much better against the run than they are the pass, so it's not a good. And then Herbert's taking work away. And then Eno Benjamin, his numbers haven't been he did score a touchdown like last week, but his rushing numbers not good. Connor has a good chance of playing, and we won't know. They're expecting him to play, and that would kill Benjamin further. So I'm going to say Jamal Williams there. All right, let's see. Randy, so Tyler Algier, you want to know what his expectations with Cordero Patterson are. And what we saw was in the beginning of the season, Algier was like the 2, and he was getting in the 10 carry range. They can't overwork Patterson. They did it already, and they lost him quickly. So I think Algier hangs in for 10 carries, but that could go anywhere from 30 yards to 55 yards. You do have a chance for a touchdown, but I just think he's a flex at this point because I think ultimately he's a lower upside guy, especially if he doesn't get in a rhythm, which means he doesn't get enough carries consecutively. So I'm going to say he's a flex option going forward. And I do think Huntley's out of the picture. Some other people think otherwise, but Algier was the number 2 earlier when Cordero was there. I don't see any reason to believe that changed. Henry, Swift, Jamal Williams, or Fournette. Now, I know Fournette hasn't done a lot and he's been really slow the last week. I do think he got a touchdown in there, which helped him a bit. Swift, again, so even despite the lower snap share, I believe Swift still has the highest upside against Green Bay. He could take 10 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. Would not surprise me. So he's your upside guy. Fournette's going to get volume, but they're playing the Rams. Rams are number 1 run defense, and they're not blocking at all in the front line, and they're without Luke Goedeke, their left guard in Tampa Bay. So I'm going to say Jamal Williams is your floor play. You want a safe floor, you're going to go with him. But if you want to risk some potential low for a bigger game, I think Swift could get that bigger game on limited touches. And Brian, good. I'm glad you asked. I saw you dumped a question before. It's tough for me to get to questions on Twitter other than these streams on Sunday. So I'm glad you're here, man. If you have any other questions, Brian, make sure you ask me. I'm happy to answer them for you here. So Jeff Wilson. So look, here's what I think about Jeff Wilson. He's having the best year of his career, 5.1 yards per carry, 4 20-plus yard runs. He hadn't had that many 20-plus yard runs in his 200 touches in his prior career, right? So I think they were overworking Mostert. We all know they were, right? He was getting 15 to 18 carries a week and returning kickoffs. He was eventually going to fry out. So I think there's a good chance Wilson transitions right in because he knows the system. They don't need him to have had practice time. You call the plays, he knows where to go and what to do. I think there's a good chance Jeff Wilson leads the team in carries beginning this week. I could be wrong. It's a guess, but they have to know that Mostert needs a break. And Mostert's only 4.5 yards per carry. Mostert is one of his broken tackle rate is low. His yards after contact are low. I think Wilson is a better running back right now. So I think there's a good chance he takes the lead. And if it's not this week, though, it's going to be really soon. I think Jeff Wilson is a strong running back, too, going forward. And I believe it's a purposeful trade that they made for him. All right, let's see what else we got here on Insta. Lisa, you got Swift or Likely in the flex. So again, Likely's facing New Orleans, who is the toughest tight end defense in the league. They give up less than 30 yards a game, and they have not given up a touchdown to a tight end yet. So they've been pretty devastating. Likely did really well last week. The point was, though, that it was very clear to me that the game plan for Baltimore was to attack Tampa with the tight end. Started out with Mark Andrews. He got hurt. Likely just went right in and did that. I don't think you attack New Orleans with the tight end. And so to me, DeAndre Swift on limited touches, he's your play because he's going to get something. And he has, again, against the Packers, he has real upside here. Robert, all right. What do you got? You got half PPR. You need a tight end in the flex. Likely or Higbee, Bird, Jeff Wilson, or Mooney. So I do like Mooney this week. The Bears are going to have to score to keep up. Mooney has been putting up at least roughly 50 yards a game the last 3, so he's been productive. And I still think there's a game coming here. And the secondary in Miami is not good. And they do blitz, which means they often leave themselves hanging on the back end of it. That could lead to a big play for Mooney after the catch. So I'm kind of in on Mooney this week. And for your flex, you just heard me highlight why Isaiah Likely is a little bit problematic for me. Higbee saw his targets go down the last couple of weeks after doing really well earlier. Damiere Byrd is tough to call because he had a couple big plays, but they just don't get enough targets. I would. So here we say Mooney for sure. Wilson, there could be risk. I think he gets right in and has a role. I think he's a very strong play this week as a flex. You need a tight end. So never mind. It's Mooney and Higbee. Never mind. You need a tight end. I don't trust Likely this week. I don't trust him. That's funny, Robert. All right. CA Angels. You got Singletary, Herbert, or pick up Khalif Raymond to start for the week. Okay, let's see here. It's a tough matchup for Herbert. I mean, the Dolphins are like a top 5 run defense. They're really, really tough to run on. I think Singletary's going to have volume. I do think they were getting, and against the Titans, I think that, the Jets. The Jets are great against the pass. They're very, very good against the run, but they're going to have to defend the pass. And I think there's more room for Singletary to run. I think Singletary is your play this week. Khalif Raymond has had 2 really good games. I don't like him against the Packers corner. I think his limited skill set is outmatched in that one. And the Packers get a pretty good pass rush. And so that means any downfield stuff may not be there. So I am going to lean Singletary in this one. I do think that he gets enough work. Now, I know Tennessee is very tough against the run, but they're going to have to focus on stopping the pass. And I keep saying Tennessee. I mean the New York Jets. We got to get this straight. New York just have to focus on the pass. And I think that's going to open up some room underneath for Singletary. Got to get my matchup straight. I've been doing this all week. I've had these games memorized. And now I'm doing this. Johnny Surfer. All right, what do you got? Must win for you. Good. I hope you win. Unfortunately, you're forced to play Algier as your running back 2. Henderson is your flex. DeAndre Carter is your wide receiver. But you've got Pacheco and Djax. Pacheco just doesn't get enough work. And the matchup is not good. An interior runner against Tennessee. Now, Jeffrey Simmons could be out, and that would help, but they're really stout against the run. And Pacheco is just like a go upfield and go guy. I don't think there's gaps to run here. God, I feel bad for you because I want to recommend him over Henderson, but it was especially with Akers back. It's always hard. And Henderson saw fewer touches than Ronnie Rivers and Malcolm Brown. I would almost say, look, Henderson's floor is like tiny. I would almost say Pacheco played and got one big run. I think Henderson can't do that. So I almost would say if you're willing to take a chance, because Henderson has no ceiling. So I would play Pacheco over Henderson, hope he got one 40-yard run and call it a day, because it's risky. But that's what I would say. And Deshaun Jackson, I just don't know. We've seen him on teams in the last couple of years, and then he comes in and we might have one play 1 week and then we're not sitting for 4 weeks. So it's just DeAndre Carter should get volume, and that gives him a higher floor than Djax. So I got to roll with that. I hope you win your game. Hope you players come up big for you. Danny, you've got Higbee or Likely. I'm going to go Higbee here. Again, Likely's facing Saints defense that gives up less than 30 yards a game to tight ends, no touchdowns. One guy's gone over 23 yards against them. That was Noah Fant, so that was a fluke, right? And but Higbee, and I know his targets down last week, but Higbee's going to get targets. So, and then we have another Insta question. We got Chargers fan. Good morning to you as well. Michael Carter, Rondale. Ooh, that's a good one to have. They're both going to get targets here. Rondale has 8 or more targets in 3 of his last 4 games. Michael Carter's probably going to get a bunch of targets, and James Robinson is limited with a knee. I think Carter's your floor play here. I think he has a higher floor than Rondale Moore, but I think Rondale Moore might have more ceiling, because I think when he's running routes that go to the middle of the field, that's the place you can attack. The Seahawks. Our outside corners have been very good, but I think you could get them in the middle of the field. So I think Rondale Moore is your more of your boom bust play, and so I do think he has real upside. But Carter's a safer play, and at your half PPR, I think Carter gets you a good 7-8 points for sure, which is bankable income in a half PPR. So I think that's a good way to look at that. Brian, you've got, would I give Shoney a shot over? No, I would not. It's going to take, they're going to have a package of plays, and it's going to be a few plays. If he plays more than 20 snaps, I would be a little bit alarmed, or something, not alarmed, but surprised. It's really tough to acclimate into Andy Reid's offense. I think there'll be a couple plays they're going to have, and they might get him the ball and try to get him the ball on those, but there's no guarantee of that. And we've seen Andy Reid be infatuated with players who he brought in the past, Josh Gordon among others, and there have been others in the past, and we always get excited, but then the reality is maybe not so much. Tony still has to learn the offense, and I know they said he's a smart kid and Andy Reid's offense isn't easy to learn, and you're coming in mid-season. I think it's going to be a ramping up process, and I don't even know how high that goes. So no, I would go with Rondale Moore for sure. Garrett Wilson worries me because the Bills are going to pressure without a blitz, and Zach Wilson is like clueless. And the secondary is banged up for the Bills. I don't think it matters. I think the pressure to get on Wilson makes it irrelevant, and they play a real tight zone. Now, Wilson should be fine against zone, but overall, I still think that the Buffalo defense is going to overwhelm this offense. So I think Rondale Moore has a good floor and a better ceiling than them. So that's the way I go. All right. So if I have any other Insta questions here, I have a question from JF Cisneros. I have Fields or Lawrence. So I like them both. I think Lawrence is going to be in a shootout this week. I actually have him on my DFS plays this week. But Justin Fields is on my list too. And Fields has a higher floor. He's been 60, 80, 88 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground in the last 3 weeks. He's thrown a touchdown in at least 3 games. So Fields has a higher floor, and they have comparable ceilings. So, and I believe that, the Miami matchup is good because their defensive backs, they don't cover well, and they have injuries in the secondary as well, especially at safety. I know they're down to safety for sure. And so I would go with Justin Fields. Both are defensible plays. I think Fields has a higher floor. Been playing well. The offense has really been tailored to him lately. Johnny Football, Juju, DJ Moore, Josh Palmer need 2. DJ Moore's had 2 favorable matchups with 2 corners down for the Bucs, 2 corners down for the Falcons. Guess what? Gets 2 corners down against the Bengals today. Awuzie and Mike Hilton are out. So I think we roll with DJ Moore again. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, has a higher floor than Palmer. He gets like 8 targets in most games, and then he had a 5-target game, went over 100 yards, and he's got 100 yards in 2 straight. And honestly, I think against the Titans, I think Juju's in a good situation here. Jeffrey Simmons may not play pass rusher to get a lot of their pressure package is going to be screwed up, and I don't know if he plays, but he hasn't practiced all week. So I'm going to say Juju. I'm going to go with the better players, both in good situations here. And I know Palmer gets some targets here, but give me the better players here. And then you got Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields. You know, Lamar Jackson has not been a great fantasy option lately, and Justin Fields is running for more yardage. And Jackson doesn't throw for much in New Orleans. It's not a good matchup. I think Justin Fields fairly comfortably here. Believe I just said that over Lamar Jackson. But yes, I mean, it's, take the names out of the equation, show me what they've done and who they're playing, and it's Justin Fields. All right. Lisa, what do you got? You got sit one, London, Lazard, Hardman, Alec Pierce. So game day inactives are coming out in about 6 minutes, and I'll see if I can get to those while we're on here. But right now, Lazard, I know is a game time decision there. He's not 100%. If he plays, I think the one you got to say is Hardman, though. Hardman had that big week last game out, but it's really hard to bank that consistency from him. London's a tough one, though, too, because London's not getting many targets. I want to say he's less than 50 yards. He has 50 yards over the last 3 games total. I mean, this is a week where against the Chargers where he might get something done. Alec Pierce, regardless of quarterback, he gets you 50 yards a week. So I think you got to go with Pierce. You got to sit one. So here's what I'm going to tell you. We're going to start Lazard. We're going to start Pierce. For the third one, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you want a safer floor play, guy's going to get you maybe, let's say, if you're PPR, it's going to get you 6 points and get you something. It's going to be London. But if you want to risk a 1 or a 0, but maybe for a 12 to 14, then I think Hardman. So it depends on your game. If you're like a favorite or close, then you play London and keep those bankable points. But if you're an underdog and you really need to dig a bit, then Hardman's the one that you start over London. So it's between London and Hardman. Good question. All right, Johnny, what do you got? You got Isaiah Likely or Moreau? Oh, that gets a little closer now. So Moreau doesn't have a bad matchup against Jackson. I think this game shoots out. I think they're going to have to throw a bit more. Jacksonville, not great, and against the pass, you can get the ball. They're good against the run, so maybe Josh Jacobs is slow down. They have to throw a bit more. I don't like Likely against New Orleans because New Orleans, again, they give up less than 30 yards a game to tight ends. I'm going to say Moreau here. The matchup's much better. I think they're going to have to throw this week. McDaniels got called into the owner's office last week, and I think he's on thin ice. I think they want to throw the ball. So that's what I'm going to tell you there. See what else we got here. We got King D Love, Wilson or Benjamin. You know what? James Conner may play this one. And if he plays, then Benjamin loses a lot of value. Benjamin hasn't been very good. He's had but you look at his numbers. I mean, it's been like 3 yards a carry. And those couple receptions he's getting, those go to Conner, I think, if Conner's playing. So right now, I'm going to say Jeff Wilson, who I imagine and expect will have a role. So I'm going to say Wilson there. Because, again, if Conner plays, Benjamin could be relegated just a few touches. You're welcome, Lisa. And Ricardo, PPR flex, Likely or Curtis Samuel. Yeah, you guys have heard me talk about Likely. Just the matchup's horrible. Curtis Samuel gets his 5 targets, right? And Minnesota, that's the one place you can attack them through the air, right? On the ground, good luck running the ball against them. But I think that's the way we're looking at. We're going to go Curtis Samuel there. And then Charger fan, Michael Carter or Rondale Moore. I think I answered that one already, but I'm going to say Michael Carter's your floor play, and Rondale Moore is a little lower floor, but a higher ceiling, I believe, in this game. All right, Laura and Jim Cooperman. You need a flex and a receiver. Deshaun, Jarvis, Evan Ingram, or Alan Lazard. So Evan Ingram, to me, he's getting like 6+ targets a week. The matchup's good, so I like it. Evan Ingram, I advocate him. Whenever there's a situation where he's facing some players that are kind of like not high upside guys. I like Ingram. I think it's a great matchup here for him too. If Lazard is active, we'll find out in the next 10 minutes or so. You go with it, Lazard, because Lazard has been very productive for him. If he's not, then we're going to now the problem with. Well, the other one's a Monday night game, so that's good. So if Lazard is inactive, then you default to Monday night. If Jarvis Landry's active, you're playing him. If he's not, then you're going to pivot to Deshaun Jackson, who's very, very risky because that 0 is always in play. So I think that's the way we're going to roll with that. Is DeAndre Carter playing today? Yes. That's a good question. I read from Schefter or Rappaport. Can't remember. I was doing the XM show this morning. And DeAndre Carter is expected to play. So, and I believe it was an illness, if I'm remembering right, but he is expected. But great question. And Insta, I got Gary Ouch. Connor or Robinson. So, they're both injured, right? So they're both like Robinson has a knee, game time decision. Connor has ribs, game time decision. But what I got to tell you is this. If at this point, I think Connor will play, but if you don't have a pivot in the small amount of late afternoon games, one other late afternoon game, and then there's night game, 2 night games. There's not much option. So you got to take what points you could get. So if Robinson is active, I think you need to play him, because if Connor's inactive, then you get a 0. And then obviously if Robinson's inactive, then you're rolling with Connor anyway. The pivot on those would be Travis Homer from Seattle, because the only, you got that game. We got the Tennessee Kansas. Jerick McKinnon on waivers would be a pivot. That would be a pivot you could use. And that would probably be it. I think it would be Jerick McKinnon would be a pivot. Dontrell Hilliard would be a pivot. If you went with Connor and he was inactive, because Connor would be the play. Connor over Robinson for sure, but if he's inactive, you can't take the 0. So that's why if you had another pivot player you could roster, then you could play that game. Chargers fan, you're welcome. Christopher, Eno, Benjamin, or Duvernay. I'm going to say Duvernay because, again, well, wait a minute, you got the luxury of this stuff. And if James Conner is inactive, then you're playing Eno because he has volume. If Connor's active, I'm worried about Eno's volume. I'm going with Duvernay. All right, let's see what we got next here. Admiral, Miami, Kansas City, or Minnesota. You know what? I'm going to go Kansas City here because realistically, they're either going to have Tannehill, who's on a bum ankle, or they're going to have Malik Willis. Sign me up all day long. That's the route we're going on that one. I don't think we'll overthink that one. Draco, you got Swift or Herbert. Herbert is a tougher matchup here. Miami's top 4 run defense. And so that makes me nervous because Herbert's obviously splits the work. Swift's going to split the work too, but Swift could be one of those guys, right? He could get you 10 touches, but get 100 yards and a touchdown. We saw that earlier in the season. So I'm going to bank on Swift here, knowing he's only getting about 30 snaps, but that's what Herbert's going to get, right? So ultimately, and against Green Bay, the matchup is so much better than Herbert's. That's why I'm going to go that route. Jason, you've got Palmer or McLaurin. All right, we got to go McLaurin here. We can't. Sometimes let's not overthink these. That's a good question. But Palmer gets some volume for sure. He'll get some. But Terry McLaurin has been playing very well. Heineke's his guy. Heineke, it was 25% target share. Last time they played together, was it last year, the year before? And then this year, they're just picking right up where they left off. And the Rams have nobody to deal with McLaurin. Like Cam Dantzler's a decent corner, but Terry McLaurin is like an elite player. So that's where we're going with that one. All right. That's good. Good question. John Doe, do you start Khalil Herbert over Jamal Williams? I don't. I just mentioned earlier that Herbert is a really, really bad matchup against Miami. Jamal Williams is a beautiful matchup against Green Bay. So I think we're going to be good there. And I'm not worried about the DeAndre Swift with the opponent thing. Not worried about that. Williams going to get probably 50% of the carries or the work, and that'll be good here. Dr. Roberto, Zay Jones or Khalif Raymond. So I think Zay Jones is your floor play here. He's going to get some targets. Nate Hobbs, the corner for the Raiders, is out, which really helps them. Khalif Raymond, on the other hand, I know the Packers have their struggles on defense, but their outside corners are going to overmatch, in my opinion, for Raymond. Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes. I just think it's too much for Raymond to handle. So I'm going to say Zay Jones for the floor. And PNLB, Higbee or Tunyon. Higbee's targets are going down a bit. Tampa is without Antoine Winfield, their strong safety, so I'm going to lean toward Higbee. I don't know that the Packers are going to need Tunyon here. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to take some shots to the outside receivers. I don't think they need Tunyon, but I know that the Rams need Higbee because they got to get the ball out quick. That's the way I'll go with that one. G Money. Oh, it's been a while, man. It's been a while. Hope all is well with you. Rodgers, Goff, or Fields. You know what? Rodgers pretty much gets you that 240 and 2 touchdowns. He gets you that, and he rarely goes much over it. And look, we've had good matchups, right? But that's what he kind of gets you. But Fields has really shown the last few weeks. He had like 60 and a touchdown, 88 and 80 and a touchdown. So and he's thrown a touchdown 3 straight weeks. I think with Fields, he's going to run. And Miami's bad in coverage. And the Bears running backs are going to have a really tough go of it here. So I'm going to say Fields. Goff has not been good the last few weeks, so on that. And then G Money, DJ Moore or Deion Jackson. I don't like Deion Jackson's matchup here. They're playing New England, and Sam Ehlinger is not going to force them to loosen their defense up. They're going to pack that defense up in tight. And think about this. Deion Jackson had 10 catches. Now those are for Matt Ryan. Sam Ehlinger is not throwing those screen passes. Matt Ryan doesn't want to get hit. So he's just dumping it off to the running back to save his own, body from taking a pounding. But DJ Moore played the Bucs without 2 corners, He played the Falcons without two corners. A.J. Terrell went down in the first quarter. And this week, plays the Bengals. No Owuzie, no Mike Hilton. I think it's another week for DJ Moore. C-Dog, Dean or Patterson? Dean. Oh, Dion. There we go. You just heard me talk about the case against Deion Jackson. I think Patterson's involved right away. We don't know for sure, but it seems reasonable that Patterson's back involved. And he's been very, very good for them. And they use him well and they block it up well in the running game. I'm going to say Patterson. Here. All right, see what we got here. Joshua. You got Alan Lazard. Yeah, if Lazard's playing, we're definitely going with him. And then, because Hardman is just two boom busts where Lazard was getting regular work. And then Larry, the mail guy, talks about Lazard or Gabriel Davis. Davis has a couple tough corners he's facing in the Jets, but he has Josh Allen throwing the ball in. There's a lot to be said for that. But I think Lazard if he plays a safer play. And so we like Lazard in that circumstance. And Davis is a little more boom bust where, if Sauce Gardner happens to be on the same side that he's on, that could be a long day for him. So I'm going to say Lazard's safer if he plays, and then Gabriel Davis. Let's see if I can find some of these inactive so we can get to some of your questions here. Let's see what we got here real quick. All right, let's take a look here. All right. We know Mike Hilton, we already said it was out. Oh, Trey Flowers, another corner for Cincinnati's out. That helps out even more for DJ Moore. And no surprises for the Chargers. Velus Jones for the Bears. Everybody's shedding a tear right here, right now. Darren Waller, we knew would be inactive. No other real surprises there. Christian Watson is active for the Packers. Alan Lazard is active, so I do think you start him as you normally would. Josh Reynolds is out. We knew he was doubtful, so that's not unexpected. James Robinson will play per Mike Garafolo. That came out a few minutes ago. DeAndre Swift, as expected, is active. We do expect him to be on limited snaps. And DeAndre Carter with the illness is expected to play against the Falcons. We will revisit some. Oh, there's a little bit more up here. We knew J.D. McKissic's out. Jahan Dotson's out. We knew that already. And we'll check for more inactives as we go. All right, see what other questions we can get to here. Let me see anything on Insta here real quick. Lisa, you have Carter or Gibson. So that's a good one, too. Carter's going to get his targets. A tough matchup. And James Robinson is playing, so that's going to maybe cut his work down a little bit. I like Gibson this week because McKissic's out. Gibson was getting 3 catches a week, and there's a lot to be said for that. And then they're playing Minnesota, and I think that's where you can get them a little bit. They're tough to run against, but you can throw to your running backs against them a bit. And I think Gibson has been schemed up well, not just a screen. They're actually running some routes with him. So I think Gibson has more upside than Carter. And I think they have similar floors because Gibson is with McKissic out. He's going to get work here. I'm going to say Gibson here. And all right, let's see what else we got here. We got next one up. All right, let me click your question on. There we go. Good. All right. Good morning. Wind in Chicago, 15 to 20. Yeah, it's so normally the wind, that's right near the break point. But here's the thing with Tua. We're not talking about him throwing rainbows down the field. We're typically looking at him throwing darts in the zones. That's where the wind doesn't bother me. Now, I know last week Tua threw a couple downfield and they were short, of course. Surprise, imagine that, right? But I think against the Bears defense, there is going to be plenty of room in their zone for crossers, and just set downs in the zone. Routes that are coming back. I can't think what I want to say here, but no, the passes he's going to throw should be fine in the wind. It's going to be more like quick hits, darts. So I think he's okay there. Tua, I do think there's a big yardage game, and I think Tyreek's going to be fine because there's going to be miscommunication between the Bears have a rookie corner, a rookie safety, wrong team, and wrong speed element. You can't make a minor mistake or he's gone to the house. I think we're fairly comfortable with that. Matt, you want to know Mostert, Jamal Williams, or Swift? Swift has the most upside of the group. He got 10 touches. He could get you 100 yards and a touchdown. Williams is the safest, has a high floor. Mostert, I believe, is going to lose work to Jeff Wilson. Mostert's had a low broken tackle rate, a low elusiveness rate, and his 4.5 yards per carry is a career low for him, while Jeff Wilson's coming in, knows the offense. There's no acclimation period. Basically, just here's the ball, here's the play. You know it. You ran it last week at San Francisco, so you're good to go. Swift is your boom bust guy. Williams is your floor guy. Christopher. DeAndre Carter, Khalif Raymond, or Eno. So Eno, the problem again is the early versus late game thing with the 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Central kickoff. So I think that we're worried that James Conner right now is supposed to play. And if he does, that hurts Eno a lot. So I'm going to say Khalif Raymond has a bad matchup because I just don't think, based on his limited skill set going against Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes, I don't think that's good business. DeAndre Carter is going to have to get some targets. I think he has a floor, whereas his floor is better than Raymond or Eno with James Conner. So I'm going to go with Carter there. Johnny Surfer, you got Swift, Herbert, or Dubs. Again, Swift on 10 touches can get you. Green Bay is very bad defensively against running backs, so I do like him. Herbert has a bad matchup here. Miami's top 4 against the run, and his 28% snap share. I know he had more touches than Monty last week, but I was worried about the 28% snap share. That worries me a bit. Dubs is your boom bust guy, but I think Swift has an equal boom, so that's why I'm going to say Swift. I think Swift has an equal boom. Good matchup for him. PNLB, you've got Monty, Herbert, Pacheco, standard. Have to start 2, unfortunately. You know what? Pacheco may get 4 carries in this game, and that could happen. Tennessee's a tough run defense. I don't know if Jeffrey Simmons is playing, but we won't know till tomorrow. It's a Sunday night game. We won't know till then. I just say it's a bad matchup for Monty and Herbert, but they're going to get volume. Pacheco could get you a 0. Monty and Herbert won't. That's what I'm going to say for them. Sorry, I got an itch about that. Not good. All right, here we go. Raul, pick 2. Palmer, Lazard, or Patterson. All right, so Lazard is playing, and it's an easy matchup against Detroit, so I say we got to go with him there. And then Patterson's back, and they use him so well there, so I've got to go with Patterson as well. Palmer, I think, gets some volume, but I don't know that it's more volume than Lazard or Patterson get, and give me the 2 better players there. Geno or Kirk. So I know the last time these 2 teams played, Arizona and Seattle, it was not the shootout we expected. Sorry, all right, it wasn't the shootout we expected. But nonetheless, I think that this game will be, and I think that they learn from that first meeting from each other, and I think that the attackable matchup is going to be through the air. So I'm going to say Geno's playing at a high level. Kirk worries me. Washington gets pressure, and I think that could be problematic on Kirk. And so I don't know that Kirk has more upside than Geno, but I know Kirk's floor is lower, which is why I sit him. Austin, how do I feel about Cordell Patterson? I think he gets 10 to 15 touches. I think his yardage goes from 45 to 80. I think he has a fair chance to score. I expect him to be in his normal role for the most part. And King D Love, pick 2, Curtis Samuel, Rondale Moore, Terrace Marshall, or Alec Pierce. So I think the highest floor plays of these 2 are Curtis Samuel and Rondale Moore. And I don't know that Marshall and Pierce have more ceiling than they do. Pierce is close, but I think against New England, they're going to make it a little tough on Sam Ehlinger to get rid of the ball. So I'm going to go with Samuel and Pierce for that reason here. All right, let's see what else we got here. We got Brian, 2 of 3. Swift, Walker, ETN. I know it's a tough problem, a good problem to have, right? Walker is a very good player, boom or bust on his runs. He gets a lot of short runs and he breaks something, but he gets enough work where he gets those booms, right? And Arizona is a team that'll give those up. Travis Etienne, impossible to sit him right now, I think. I think he's at the level. Since Swift is going to play limited snaps, and we've seen that. I detailed in the SiriusXM show this morning on Channel 87 between 9 and 10, talked about how Swift's touches have been limited since the new coach Dan Campbell came in last year. And so I think Walker and ETN have higher snap rates. They're all are 3 explosive players. I think for that reason, we sit Swift until we know he's going to get more work. Joe, Caleb Huntley or Madison. So with Cordero Patterson back, my personal expectation is early in the season, it was Patterson and Algier. To me, with Patterson back, Huntley's the odd man out. Madison will see as low as 20% of the snaps, as high as 40. But he gets red zone work. I'm going to say Madison because I think Huntley is the odd man out here in terms of his own backfield. I don't see the path to touches for him. I could be wrong. I just don't see the path to touches. Iron Eddie, man, I'm glad you listened to the Saturday XM show. Thanks. And I do wish it was every day too. We have Sunday 9 to 10. I don't know if that works for you in the morning, but we do Sunday morning show too. It's been new this year. It's been a very, very fun show, but I'm glad you listened to it. Pitts are likely. I'm going to say Pitts. I likely facing a New Orleans defense to give less than 30 yards a game to tight ends. And I just don't think likely has that advantage on them. Whereas Pitts ran more routes last week. Maybe it's sticky. Maybe it's not. Maybe it goes back to that 18 routes, which makes it tough. But he ran like 25 routes last week, and that was really, really good. And yeah, thanks. And thank you. Yeah. And Robinson's active. I'm going to check for any other actives that we need to know about. Take a quick look here. As expected, Damian Harris is out for the Patriots. We knew that, but we're confirming that. Devontae Parker we knew was out. We told you earlier DeAndre Carter's playing. And Chuba Hubbard we knew was out already. Tre'Davious White not yet back for the Bills. He was active to the roster, but not active for game day Sunday. Their tackle Spencer Brown is out, but they should be okay. Their linebacker Matt Milano's out, and safety Jordan Poyer. So a lot of defensive injuries for the Bills. I still think they're going to get enough pressure in their front four that Zach Wilson's in trouble. And this is somewhat important. Not the player, but Myles Gaskin is inactive, which means Jeff Wilson has a role this week. If Gaskin was active, then that means that they weren't ready, but Wilson plugs right into an offense he knows well. We knew that A.J. Terrell, the corner for the Falcons, was out. We already knew that, so we're good there. And Zach Moss is inactive for the Colts. So like I said, though, it's a horrible matchup for Deion Jackson because the Patriots are not only good against the run, but they know Sam Ellinger's in, and they're going to definitely make sure to compress the front of the field. All right, we should be caught up on some of those. All right, let's see what else we got. We got a couple Insta questions here, too. I think Joshua Lazard or Hardman. I think I answered it earlier. I'm going to say Lazard on that one. NFL Draft Geek, Bench One, Superflex, Henry, Delvin, Etienne, Ramondre Cousins. Oh, man. Oh, wow. How do you sit one of those guys, right? Yeesh. Man, wow, that's a good problem to have. You know what? I'm going to say Ramondre. I love Ramondre. He's got a lot of targets the last 2 weeks, but Indy is a very good run defense. And I mean, it's impossible to sit any of them, right? But I'm going to say Ramondre because Etienne, good matchup. Delvin, good matchup. And Delvin just has a great floor. Henry, look, they're going to run him as long as they can. And Kansas City, I don't know if they can stop him. So I'm going to, like I said, it's a good problem to have. I say Ramondre. All right. Trell, pick 2, Carter, Swift, or Deion Jackson. I'm going to sit Jackson against, and even though I said Zach Moss is inactive, that doesn't surprise me. I kind of expected that. New England's going to make it really tough for him. And the quarterback, they're not going to be worried about him, so everything's compressed. So I don't, those screen passes coming from Matt Ryan, those aren't coming from Sam Ellinger. Those 10 catches aren't coming from him, I don't think. Johnny, McKinnon, Dontrell Hilliard, Caleb Huntley need one. I think Huntley's out in the back. I mean, if Patterson's back, I think it's him and Algier. That's what it was before Patterson got hurt, so I don't know why it changes. So, you know what? Hilliard may get garbage time here. If you think the Chiefs are going to win this one, so here's what I want to tell you. If Jeffrey Simmons is inactive for the Titans, then I think the Chiefs get a big lead, and I think Dontrell Hilliard gets work late, and he's the play. If Jeffrey Simmons does play, the game stays close, Hilliard doesn't get a lot of work, and I go with Jerick McKinnon. It's complicated, right? All right, but I think it does make sense, though. Raul, Jets or Seahawks, D? Well, got to go with the Seahawks. I can't go against the Bills. Just can't do it. I think I answered this one already. I did. He asked it twice. Henry, starting Newman, Terrence Newman is not sure who you mean, but you have Tony on the bench. Not sure who you meant there. Tony, my guess is 15, 20 snaps. My guess is 1 to 3 catches, 8 to 25 yards. That's probably what I'm thinking for him. Jamal Williams or Kenyon Drake? Jamal Williams. Kenyon Drake has a bad matchup. Jamal Williams is a beautiful matchup. They both will see similar work. We'll go that route. Stacy, Lazard, any last minute? Lazard's playing. So you start him as you normally would. So we should be good there. And Shane, do I like Yeah, I do like Tua. Tua's a great matchup. The Bears don't have any pressure rate, and that's number one for Tua. The Bears are bottom two in pressure rate, and there's no Robert Quinn, there's no Roquan Smith, and they have a rookie corner, a rookie safety, and they got to deal with the speed of Hill and Waddle. So I love Tua this week. And obviously, Herbert's a much better quarterback, but Atlanta's going to probably shorten the game with the run. That's going to be problematic there, too. All right, see what else we got here. Christopher, do I stash Fields for next week? Yeah, definitely stash Fields. You can get Fields that because he could be a quarterback one the rest of the way they're running the ball with him. Ellie, Pacheco, Robinson, Landry, or Alec Pierce need to start too. Alec, I don't think it's a great matchup for Alec Pierce, but I'm starting him because he's done something every week. Landry plays the Monday night game, so we can't go with him because we don't know if he'll be deactivated or, even if he's 100% yet. So that leaves me with the one pick left. And so your floor play, who will get you about 4 points, and you hope he falls in the end zone to make it 10, is Brian Robinson. And so that's what I'm going to tell you for the other one, because Pacheco, I just can't trust him to get enough touches to do damage with it. Foxborough News, 16-man half PPR, have to start one in the flex. Edwards-Helaire or Robinson from Washington. So, you know what? I think Edwards-Helaire, his snap share isn't great, but he gets more. Robinson has a terrible matchup here. Minnesota's a top 4 run defense, and Robinson is not looking good as the weeks pass. And honestly, Gibson looked a lot better than he did, especially last week. I'm going to say Edwards-Helaire here. He should get at least as many touches, but he should get some involved in the passing game, and that'll help your half PPR a bit. So I'm going to go that route. Abra, Kirk, Boyd, Davis, or Williams, PPR flex. So, I think Boyd is in a good situation here. He could, we look at him against Carolina. Carolina, they have one good corner on the outside. They're in CJ Henderson will play the slot. He's awful. And I think this is a week where they really can attack with the slot. So I love Boyd this week, but I also love Christian Kirk. I think Boyd, though, is going to be they're both going to be focal points in a passing game. Gabe Davis has some downside because if he sees quite a bit of Sauce Gardner, that could be a problem. Jamal Williams has a great floor. Williams probably has the best floor of them all in an easy matchup, but I think the best combo of floor and I'm going to say Boyd. You couldn't go wrong with Kirk either because Kirk could have a big game as well. I think Boyd is a little more likely to have the big game. Brian, McLaurin or Gabe? I'm going to say McLaurin. Gabe Davis, I just was saying a minute ago, I think he's going to see quite a bit of Sauce Gardner. And, maybe not all the time, but half the time, and that's going to limit things. He gets 6 targets a game. McLaurin just does so well with Taylor Heineke, and Minnesota doesn't have any corner to deal with him. So that's the way I would frame that one. Another question on Insta, DeAndre Carter or Monty in the flex. So, ultimately, Carter's cleared from the illness, but Monty has a similar floor. And, Monty has a bad matchup, but Monty's used as a receiver too. So I think Monty has a similar floor to Carter, but I think he has more ceilings. I'm going to say that's the way I'm going to go with that. TJ, Cordero, or Herbert. Just talking about that game, and Miami is a top 4 run defense, and they're tough. It's tough to run on them. And, I know he had more touches than Monty last week, but his snap share was only in the 20s. So percentage, 28% snaps. Patterson, to me, he gets back to a similar role. And the matchup, there's nothing scary about the matchup. The Chargers are not good against the run. So I'm going to go Patterson there. Shane, Henderson, Algier, Mostert, Foreman. I love Foreman this weekend. DJ Reader's out, and that's been a big difference with Cincinnati's run defense lately. So he's one for sure. The next one, Mostert and Algier probably get similar. Henderson's not getting enough work. He was giving up work to Ronnie Rivers, giving up work to Malcolm Brown, and now it looks like Akers is active. So Henderson is no upside, and his floor is horrible. So I'm going to say Mostert. Bears aren't a great run D. I think Mostert's going to get less carries than he had, 10 to 12. But Algier, I think he gets similar, but I'd rather have Mostert. Mostert has a chance of breaking a play. Not that he has, but he does. Delroy, you see, you've got pick 2, Rondale, Curtis Samuels, Alec Pierce, Harris. I think I answered this one earlier, but we're going to go with Rondale Moore and Curtis Samuel on that one because they both have high floors. I like that better. All right, next one, Eno Benjamin or Terrace Marshall. So here's the thing, that Benjamin plays the game in a late window. Marshall has an early game, and we don't know if we expect Connor's going to play right now. And as of right now, if that's the case, Benjamin loses a lot of his value. Terrace Marshall played 90% of the snaps last week. He was targeted, and I think it's a good matchup for Terrace Marshall here. So, ultimately they're playing Cincinnati, who's down Mike Hilton. They're down Chidobe Awuzie, and Eli Apple is terrible. So ultimately, I think Terrace Marshall should play. Robert, thanks. I appreciate that. You got to pick one for the flex. I'll see that below. Your question is coming right up there, so I'm going to get you. Happy that you're here. Trey, full PPR, London or Raymond? Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because London doesn't get enough targets. He's a star, but he's not getting looks. Raymond has been producing, but this week I'm worried about the matchup. I don't like him against Jair Alexander. I don't like him against Eric Stokes. I think that's where his limited skill set becomes a problem. And Green Bay gets pressure, so the downfield stuff might not be there. So honestly, I would probably lean to London, just thinking his floor would be higher in the situation he's in than Raymond's. That would be the rationale behind that. All right, let's see what we got here. We got next one. We've got Patrick. Pick 3 receivers for PPR: Lazard, Hardman, Samuel, Marvin Jones, Chenault. You're welcome on the assist. So we're Lazard's healthy and it's an easy matchup. We're definitely going to go with him. And Curtis Samuel gets his 5+ targets, and he got a little rushing work in the last couple games too. So we like that too. So I think we're going to look to those two for sure. The third one here. So what I'll say is this. I think your third for the floor play will be Marvin Jones, because the Raiders are down Nate Hobbs, who's their best corner. They don't cover really well, and they actually haven't been pressured. Even though they have Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, they're below average pressure rating per PFF. So I'm going to say Jones is the floor play. But if you need some ceiling and risking a low floor, Hardman could have a big play here. So that's what I would say. So I would say Lazard and Samuel. If you want a safer floor play for the third, it's Jones. If you want to risk a low floor for a little bit more ceiling, then I go Hardman. And then, Robert, you need to pick one for the flex: Pittman, Benjamin, or Rondale Moore. Pittman still saw 9 targets last week, so I think we're okay there. And the fact that we saw the 9 targets, you've got to play him. Pittman's an elite player, and the routes he runs, he's not going to be overly engaged with the New England corners. A lot of crossers and in breakers, so he's fine. He's kind of immune from that. So I'm gonna go with Pittman as the best player here. Rondale Moore certainly has very good floor with reasonable ceiling, and I can make a good case for playing him. But I just wanted to go with the most talented player here, because I think Pittman does not have an oppressive situation here. All right, let me see. I'm still going a bit here, but I'm seeing I'm about out of time on Instagram. I have an hour and I have one left. So if anybody wants to watch on Insta, come over to the RotoWire YouTube page. I'll catch you there. I'm going to log that one off, and then I'm going to just go back to finish these. I'll see how much I have here, by the way, too. Yeah, I got a lot to get to, but we got time. We got 15 minutes, so we'll get through all these. All right, so Justin, you've got Eckler and Gabe Davis, or ETN and Diggs. Oh, so that must be a DFS question. You're looking to fit some salary in there. ETN and Diggs, they both have high floors and good ceilings. If you're in a tournament, if there's like a DFS tournament question, it's Eckler and Gabe Davis, because Gabe Davis has the tough cornerback matchup, but that's where you want to go, right? He could have that big game despite the matchup. And so for his DFS, that's the swing for the fence one. The safer one is ETN and Diggs by far. Much, much safer. They have good upside, but like Eckler and Gabe Davis have slate breaking upside. That's how I would look at that. Ian. Oh, man, thank you so much. So nice of you to say that. And I see that's like 40 minutes ago you posted that, but I hope you're still here. But thank you so much. And then Swift, Drake, or Herbert. All right, so Swift will play about 30 snaps, but again, he is elitely talented. He has an easy matchup. Drake has a much tougher matchup, and he's not nearly that good of a player. Sometimes he gets a little break and he gets a bigger run. Khalil Herbert has a bad matchup as well. And so I'm going to go with Swift on limited snaps, because he'll play about the same amount of snaps as Drake and Herbert anyway. Swift is the best player of the 3, and he has the best matchup of the 3. All right, let's see. Bryce, do I trade Kamara and Foreman for CMC? If you have enough running back depth where that won't leave you short with an injury or a bye week, I would consider that deal. Now, Kamara's getting 9 or 10 targets a game with Andy Dalton, but obviously Christian McCaffrey has more upside. So if if you can spare the depth and it's not going to bite you, then yes. And then Ian, you have Hurst as a tight end, Everett as a flex. You have Likely on the bench. The Saints defense give less than 30 yards a game to tight end, so I am not advocating Likely this week, despite his great performance against the Bucs last week. So you go with what you have. King Marcelo. All right, you need a flex. PPR, London, Zay Jones, Mac Hollins, Julio, Terrace Marshall, Kadarius Toney. You know what? I like Terrace Marshall in some ways because he had 90% of the snaps last week. He was some productivity there. And the Bengals are down 2 corners, and Eli Apple's left, and he's not playing well at all. So, but again, Mac Hollins is heavily involved in the offense. And I think the Raiders are going to throw more this week. I know that McDaniels got called into the owner's office. My guess is to complain about, the offense not working. And so my guess is they come out. But I think it's like Terrace Marshall's always going to be risky. But I think Mac Hollins probably has a higher floor than Terrace Marshall. So I would probably say Mac Hollins. And I like Julio, but I just don't know if he's going to make it through a game. I don't know what the snaps are going to be. That's the only problem there. Walter. Guy, let's see. Got Cordell and Algier as your only running backs. You use both of them. Yeah. All right. So they both should get carries. They both should get about 10 carries each. If they're going on what the Falcons did when Patterson was healthy last, that's what you would do. I don't know what Akers' role is going to be. I do think if he plays, he will play as hard as he possibly can because he's realizing now it's his chance to get paid. Or to get something for his future. So he's playing for his career right now in some ways, right? So it would be risky, but I think Akers could have a game. I wouldn't start the other guys. I would start Algier and Cordell. But if you feel that you want to be risky and you see that same path, I know where Akers gets in and has something to prove. Tampa has not been good against the run. It's a gettable matchup. So that's something to consider there. Brian, Carter or Garrett Wilson? Yeah, I know. It's equal because Wilson's a better player. Now, the Bills play a lot of zone, and that's good for Wilson. Wilson's been struggling a little bit more against man, but he's going to see a ton of zone here. But the problem is that there's so much pressure on Zach Wilson. That'll be a problem. DeAndre Carter probably has a higher floor. Wilson has a higher ceiling. So if you want a safe 7 points, I think that's Carter. If you need 15, I don't think that's Carter. I think that's going to be Wilson, but you have downside at Wilson because of the matchup. Eric. Oh, all right, good. Alan's a good friend. That's good. That's good. Oh, that's funny. Throwing each other under the bus. Love it, love it, love it. Martin. All right, A.J. Dillon or Brian Robinson, PPR. Yeah, wow. That's, you know what? Dillon is an easier matchup. Robinson is a bad matchup. They both will probably get similar work. I'm going to go with Dillon there. Joe, Caleb Huntley or Madison. I personally think that Huntley is the odd man out here. I think that was the case when Patterson was healthy earlier. It was him and Algier. So I'm going to say Madison. Steve, Boyd or DK Metcalf? Oh, man. Metcalf has a higher floor because he almost has like a guaranteed level of targets, and there's nothing scary about the Arizona defense. They have nobody to deal with him. Matter of fact, as much as I like Boyd, and I think Boyd has a lot of upside, Metcalf's floor makes me say Metcalf because I don't think Boyd has a higher ceiling than Metcalf, so I'm going to say Metcalf on that one. Explorer Connection, Mooney, Carter, Zay Jones, Julio, or MVS. I'm going to say Mooney here. Miami can't really cover well on the back end. They're really struggling here. And Mooney's had at least 50 yards, I think, in 3 straight games. And I think that's a good enough floor for me to say, you know what? There might be more here this week, too. Brian, I'm going to go with Tunyon here over Likely. Likely's playing in New Orleans. He gives less than 30 yards a game to tight ends. They're number 1 against tight ends, whereas Tunyon has a favorable matchup. May not see a lot of targets, but I think he has a better situation than Likely. I'm going to go with that. Quinn, MVS, Robert Woods, Zay Jones, or Chase Claypool. I'm going to say MVS. He's played well recently, and the matchup for him should be fine. Woods, the quarterback situation is bad. Zay Jones just hasn't had any ceiling. And Claypool, I don't know what his role will be. Too hard to think he'll fit right in. Tunyon or Taysom Hill. That's where I say Taysom Hill. It's riskier, and I think the Ravens would be prepared for him. But I don't think Tunyon has a whole lot of upside, whereas Hill does. And I think Tunyon doesn't have a high enough floor where you're like, I definitely got to have those points. So I'd say Taysom Hill. Justin, Rashad White or Eno. Well, again, it's an early late game thing. Is it? Let me see. Rashad White. No, they're both late games. Oh, this is good. So we'll make it this easy. So if James Conner is active, you go with Rashad White. If James Conner is inactive, then you're going with Eno. That's what we're going to do because Eno's role will probably be significantly lessened. It'll be less than Rashad White's if Conner's active. Ronnie, Garrett Wilson, or Kenyon Drake. I think Drake has a higher floor here because Wilson, they are playing the Bills, and the Bills are not a good matchup. But I think Wilson has more upside here because Drake's probably not going to get much going against the Saints' top 10 run defense. But Wilson has a chance, if the game gets out of hand, to see targets late. And look, their Bills are now 2 safeties. They do have some injuries. So I think there's a boom-bust path for Wilson. Jordan, Samuel, Gibson, and Flex. Ooh. They both are going to get their targets, right? Gibson looked really good last week, and I think with McKissick out, he's going to get more run. I think Samuel has a safer floor, but I think Gibson actually has more upside because of the way they're using him. So Samuel's safe play, and then if you want a little risk reward, then you might want to go with Gibson there. Samuel's getting some, in the last couple weeks, had some rushing opportunities which he hadn't had for a few weeks. Algier or CEH? I'm going to go with CEH here. Again, Algier probably gets close to 10 carries, and the Chargers are a good matchup. But I think CEH, he gets similar amount of touches. I think there's a better chance that they're in the red zone more often. He has a higher chance to score. 55-40, if you have a gut feel, go with it. Chad, Mark Andrews is he's doubtful. He's not going to play. So you got to go Taysom Hill. If by some chance Andrews is active, you can't sit him. I just don't think you can sit him. So if he's active, you start him. Good thing they're both in the Monday night game. So that kind of bails you there. Answered that one already. Herbert or Carter in the flex. You know what? Herbert is a really bad matchup. Carter has the advantage of they probably fall behind and he gets a lot of receptions late. So I'm going to say Carter for that reason. Johnny. Hayden Hurst, Gesicki, Cole Kmet, Foster, Moreau, you need one. Hayden Hurst is in a good spot this week against Carolina. I think Carolina has a bottom half pressure rate, even though Brian Burns really is bottom 10 pressure rate, actually. And so I do think they'll be able to move the ball through the air. And got that. Mooney or Robinson. Yeah, I know. Mooney is a good matchup. And Mooney has at least 50 yards in the last 3 games. And Miami can't cover. So, no, Mooney's a good play this week. I'm going to go with him over Robinson. I think Robinson might see a lot of Carlton Davis, and that's a rough cornerback matchup for him. Mikey, you got Olave or Godwin. Ooh, that's a good problem to have, right? So I think Godwin has your higher floor because Godwin is going to see targets, but I think he sees Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey plays the slot a lot, and that's going to be a little bit tougher for him. So so Godwin, though, still has a higher floor. I still think it's a higher floor. The Ravens are going to have a good plan for Olave, but I think Olave still has the ability to beat them with upside. So here, if you want your safe 10 points, it's Godwin. If you want to risk a 6 for maybe a 20, I think Olave has that wider range of outcomes, and I would look at that. All right, Elias, Pittman or Palmer. Again, I think we go with the better player here. I think Pittman got 9 targets last week. I think the routes he runs are going to make him immune to the cornerback matchups with the Patriots. So I'm just going to go with the better player with a similar volume. Gabe Davis or Boyd. So I think Boyd has some real upside in this game. But Davis gets like 6 targets a game. So Davis usually is the boom bust guy. I think compared to Boyd, he has a safer floor. But I think in this particular matchup, Boyd has upside potential. But then Gabe Davis, he has Josh Allen throwing the ball, right? And he, even despite the 2 good corners, he could win. I'm going to say Gabe Davis here because just the offense is in a better place right now. Yeah. All right. And then Dylan, Foreman, Gibson, or Herbert. I'm going to go with Foreman. Foreman, to me, is an excellent running back. Last year with Tennessee, he had 300-yard games and a 5-yard stretch. This week here, he's got 2 in a row. No reason to go away from him. And Bengals are without their DJ Reader, their best run defender. Brian Pope, Foster, likely. Foster, Moreau. I'm trying to think this through. Moreau has a higher floor, I believe. And as much as I'm talking down Isaiah Likely, well, I still think Moreau could score a touchdown. So I'm going to go Moreau fairly easily on that one. Waller droppable. Oh man, he hadn't been getting targets before the injury. That's what the concern is, right? But man, if they get him back and they start using him, because I do think that McDaniels has to fix the offense. I think part of that's going to be passing the ball more. So I mean, it depends what you're picking him up for. I wouldn't recommend dropping Waller, but if that's your option and you're in week 9 now, right? So you could consider it. Palmer or Samuel. They should see similar targets, and Samuel, I think, has more ability for upside against Minnesota. Minnesota's not a great defense against the pass. Samuel's getting some rushing opportunities too. I'm going to say 55-45% on Samuel. If you have a gut feel, go with it. Justin, Gino, or Kyler at quarterback. Kyler ran for 100 yards against them the last time they played. Their offense is so much better when DeAndre's on the field. So I am going to say, because Kyler is more likely to run, I'm going to say Kyler. Thielen gets 7 to 9 targets a game. It's like clockwork. And Washington has been very, very amenable or positive to secondary receivers. I did some studying on it this week, and I like Thielen as a prop over this week. I like Adam Thielen this week. I think he's a start play this week. Dr. Roberto, you're very welcome. And Henry, 2 of 4. I'm trying to think of T. Newman. I'm trying to think of T. Newman. I think I answered this already, but no, I didn't. I don't know who T. Newman is. I don't know why I'm missing it, but I just don't get it. Conklin's a strong play. Algier should get about 10 carries, and he's a decent play. Likely or Knox. Knox is getting like 30 yards a game, and you're just praying for a touchdown. Like I said the Saints give less than 30 yard a game to tight end, but I think I would play him over Dawson Knox because Knox hasn't been having any upside games. Kirk, Rondale, Meek, Cole, or Mooney. Oh, wow. Mooney for sure, because he's getting at least 50 yards a game. And then Kirk and Rondale are both in a good spot, but I do think that Raiders game is going to shoot out with Jacksonville. So I would go Kirk slightly over Rondale, but if you have a gut feel between those two, go with it. But I would go with Mooney. I would not play Meek Cole. He's too risky compared to the other group. All right. And then that's a high number for reception, 7.5. He has over 10 catches in 2 straight games. So the odds he goes over are very high, but to predict 8 catches in a game is tough. So I do think it's a 65% chance he goes over that, but that is a massive, that's Vegas begging you to take the over on it just on probability alone. But there's a 65% chance he goes over that. I think I answered this already. ETN or Jamal Williams, full point PPR. You know what? Williams is in a great spot, but ETN is looking like a superstar. Got to play him. Trash game, Garrett Wilson or Alec Pierce. Pierce seems to get it done every week. I'm not crazy about his matchup this week. Garrett Wilson is playing the Bills, and they pressure without blitzing, and that's not good for Zach Wilson, which means that's not good for Garrett Wilson. Alec Pierce has a floor he's shown each week, and I don't, until he shows me he doesn't have that, I got to trust him. That's why I'm going with him there. Kansas City defense, definitely. They're playing either a limited Tannehill or Malik Willis. And Dave, we got Connor currently in lineup. If he can't go, would you lean Kante, Ingram, or Jarek? Would definitely go Ingram there. McKinnon, I would definitely go Jarek McKinnon there. He has the highest floor. He's going to see snaps. Keontae Ingram, I think, Darrell Williams is out, right? He's on the injured reserve. So, wow. I still think McKinnon, they're going to probably need the screen game. I think Andy Reid realizes you're not going to run against the Titans. So I think the screen game is going to be part of the deal. That's why I like him. Duvernay or Christian Kirk. I got to go Christian Kirk here. I love the matchup against the Raiders. I do expect that he's going to be a focal point. I think that's a high scoring game, whereas Duvernay, I think, is a much lower scoring game. And I just think that New Orleans is the type of defense that knows he's their best option, and they're just going to, have enough on him to not let him do any damage. Yeah, no, man, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you're here. That means a lot. Thank you so much for being here. Or DK. DK Metcalf over both of them because there's nothing scary about the Arizona corners. Delroy, got to go Dave Davis here. Look, Duvernay, I know he gets opportunity with Bateman out, but the level of difference between the player talent is just so vast. It's just that Davis is so much more talented. I'm not worried about the matchup there. I don't want to get cute. To me, playing Duvernay is usually just getting cute unless you're playing him against like Mecole Hardman or, other guys that are kind of sketchy starters. All right, next one. Need to have Myers, Patterson, Deion Jackson, Palmer. I don't like Deion Jackson's matchup. And those 10 passes he caught a couple weeks ago, those are from Matt Ryan. I don't think he gets those from Sam Ehlinger. Matt Ryan loves throwing screens to his running backs. So I rule him out of it. Palmer, he could see some targets here, but I'm going to go with Myers and Patterson. Myers seems to have a great floor every week. He's the main cog of their passing game. And Patterson's back, and he's been very, very good for them. And I don't see that changing. All right, and then Delroy, Terrace Marshall, and I'm still going Gabe Davis. I like Terrace Marshall this week, but to start him over Gabe Davis, I just couldn't really do that. Timothy, good morning to you too. Swift or Olave? Because Swift is going to see 30 snaps, and that's been the case last year when he came back from injury, and this year when he came back. And Olave has upside like Swift does. Swift is a great matchup, but Olave is an elite player too, and Olave will be on the field all the time. There's less risk with Olave, which is why I go that. MBN Clothing, Brady or Fields? I got to go Fields. Brady has not done much. The Rams are not a good matchup for him. They're going to get pressure with Aaron Donald. Fields has been running, and he's been a QB1 the last few weeks where Brady hasn't been that. Eric, PPR, 3 receivers, Hill, that's Tyreek, Kirk, Duvernay, Moore, Metcalf, or Rondale Moore. You need 3. Well, we're never sitting Hill, so we're good there. Metcalf, there's nothing scary about his matchup, and he's getting targets, so I want to put him in there. The third one, I think you listed Moore twice. So the third one, it's really going to be Kirk or Rondale Moore. Duvernay, I don't put him in the equation here. I think the Christian Kirk's in a higher scoring. I think that Raiders and Jaguars game has a great probability of shooting out, which means that's good for Kirk. I can make an equal case for Rondale. It's a coin flip between Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk. Rondale Moore has had 8 or more targets in 3 of the last 4 games, which means his target floor is higher than Kirk's. So I think Moore is actually safer. And I know he had 1 target a couple games ago, but that was an anomaly. So Rondale safer. I think Christian Kirk, they both have similar upside. So maybe just Rondale Moore. I think they're both are good plays. Coin flip, whatever your gut says. But if you ask me, it'll probably be Rondale because of those targets. Jordan, you're welcome. Thor, pick 2, non-PPR, Knox, likely, Tony. I don't know how much of a role Tony's going to have. I wonder if it's 15 to 20 snaps, and it could be 1 to 3 targets. I don't see it more than that. All these guys have floor. You know that already, Thor. But Knox is getting like 30 yards a game, which I don't know that Tony's going to get that, right? And then likely's facing the toughest tight end defense in the league. They give up less than 30 yards a game to tight ends, but they may have to throw him the ball some. So I would go Knox and likely. But if you need to swing for defense and you need like a big game out of somebody, I would probably sit Knox and play Tony, but risking a 0. But if you needed like a big play, Tony could get that. Delroy, Taysom Hill or Juwan Johnson. You know what? Juwan Johnson is decent, but he doesn't have much of a ceiling. Taysom Hill has 3 touchdown upside, and they both have similar floors. That's why I'll go with Taysom. Brian, bench Leonard Fournette this week. It depends what your options are. I think Fournette's going to get some receiving. He's going to be hard for him to run. I think he gets 35 yards rushing, but I think he catches 4 balls for 40. So there's that. So if that helps you. Cousins or Rodgers? Kirk's on the road. The Commanders get some pressure. Not great, but good. Rodgers is typically 240 and 2 touchdowns every week. That seems to be it. And they're playing Detroit. And I think Rodgers is safer. I don't know how much more upside Cousins has than Rodgers. So I would take the safe play with Rodgers. Swift, it's got to be Swift. Like I said, I like Marshall, but at the end of the day, it's Terrace Marshall. Swift could have 10 touches, get you 100 yards and a touchdown. So I would go with that. Dave, you're welcome and good luck to you as well. Jay, PPR, Monk. So again, I think Deion Jackson is a bad matchup. I think New England is going to compress the defense. They're not worried about Sam Ehlinger. Those 10 passes that Jackson caught 2 weeks ago from Matt Ryan, those aren't coming from Sam Ehlinger. Ryan wants to get rid of the ball. Montgomery, you got to be your play there. Oh, man, you're so welcome, man. Good luck to you and good luck to everybody. Yes, for sure. And next one, Mitchell coming off the IR. I would keep him. Oh, yeah, I would keep him. I think that they're going to have a definite role for him. I think CMC is there are going to be 2 running backs on the field. I think they're going to split CMC out into the formation at times. Yeah, I think there's definitely a role for him. I would definitely keep him. And then CMC does get hurt once in a while. So you want that lottery ticket. You're welcome, Delroy. DJ Moore and Eric, I wish I remember the rest of your question. If you want to retype that, I'm going to be getting out of here in a second. Or yeah, but Eric, if you want to retype that question with DJ Moore in there, I will answer it for you. Brady or Dalton? Oh man, Brady's just not getting it done, right? And I assume that Rams Buccaneers be really low scoring. The Ravens middling against the pass, middling pass rush. I think Andy Dalton could get it done against them. Whether it's Kamara taking care of it off screens. I think Dalton has a higher floor than Brady, and I don't know that Brady has a ceiling right now. So I'm going to say Dalton. I can't believe I said Andy Dalton over Tom Brady. I'm sorry, Tom Brady. Maybe it'll piss Tom Brady off if he hears this, and then he'll go out and throw 5 touchdowns. But yeah, all serious. It's like, how's there Dalton there? Ugh, can't believe I said that. Adam, need help. Fournette, Palmer, Lazard. Ultimately Fournette is a bad matchup, but he's going to get screens. Palmer, you think he'd get targets here, but we just don't know, right? We just don't know. Gerald Everett and Austin Eckler, I think, are going to dominate targets in this game. And then if Palmer gets 3 targets, we're all ticked off. I think Fournette has enough of a role where you play him. And Lazard, I think right now he's back. I think they wait till he's healthy. So I think you go with him in an easy matchup. Brian, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Means a lot. Thank you. And if you hadn't hit the like button, please do. If you're on YouTube, subscribe would be great too. And Luis. Should I start Lazard, Juju, or Pittman? Oh, you got a good problem there. That's a good problem to have. Pittman gets so many targets. He had 9 last week. He runs routes that keep him away from the corners. There are a lot of in-breakers and gets him disengaged from corners. I think his floor is so good, and I think he has enough of a ceiling where he's equal with Juju and Lazard. So I'm going to take the best player of the 3 here and say that Pittman isn't in a bad spot. Bill Belichick's not game planning to take away Michael Pittman. I think he's game planning to stop the run. That's what I think he's doing. Nick, Mooney, Curtis Samuel, you pick 2. I'm going to sit DeAndre Carter. He hasn't done a whole lot since the first 2 games he played. Curtis Samuel gets you that 5 catches a week, and that's money. And Mooney gets you at least 50 yards a game in the last 3 weeks, and he's got an easy matchup. I'm just going to go that route. All right, Kirk or Duvernay. I'm going to go. I think Kirk's in a great spot this week. Kirk's going to be up against the Raiders. I think that game shoots out. Duvernay, the Saints are well coached defensively, and I know they're down Lattimore, but I think Paulson and Debo's back. And I think if he's back, I think they've got a pretty good handle on Duvernay. I think Duvernay has too much downside. We're thinking this game against the Raiders, Kirk has enough floor to be good. Eric, you're welcome, man. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. John, you're welcome as well. Admiral, I answered a couple times. Casey all day long on that one. Eric, final spot. Kirk, DJ Moore. So DJ Moore, basically it's this way. 2 weeks ago, he played the Bucks. They were down 2 corners. He did great. Last week, played the Falcons. A.J. Terrell goes out with an injury. They're down 2 corners. DJ Moore goes off. It was the second play, but it is what it is. This week, guess what? Cincinnati's now Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton. I think you roll with DJ Moore. P.J. Walker gets him the ball. I love Kirk this week, but DJ Moore's got it done a couple weeks ago, and he's by far the best player of that group. Dylan, you're welcome. Oh, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Jay, should you keep the Chargers or Chiefs D going forward? If your roster doesn't get hurt by you keeping 2 defense, keep them both. If not, the Chiefs are going to play with more leads than the Chargers are, and I think ultimately that helps. Admiral, you're welcome. I think I'm good. I got everybody. Good luck, everybody. Have a great one.